would take the world to his feet. Ooh, mountains, feet to his feet. Ooh, mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again.
I'm sorry. Look, I had all of this stuff, so I bit on, and I was sitting here going through paperwork. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Everything was muted, and I'm just running around. I'm like, why ain't nobody called us in? Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good.
Good. We were just kind of waiting for a couple more people to join before I did the introduction, okay?
No problem.
We can start now.
How's your day so far?
Look, it's been good. It's I'm adjusting. I'm quite busy. I thought with the pandemic rolling out that I probably wouldn't be as busy, but it's the complete opposite.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join us and have this conversation. Okay, so I guess we have a couple people now. I'm going to just go ahead and do a short introduction for you and Nicole to begin. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sparkle Johnson. I am a Wayne State MSW student, and I am currently interning for the Enough Initiative. Tonight, I have the honor of introducing our guest, Jey'nce Poindexter. Jey'nce is a transgender victims' rights advocate. Ms. Poindexter has worked in various capacities with such esteemed community groups and organizations. Tonight, we are going to be discussing Ms. Poindexter intimate partner violence. Her and Nicole will also discuss sexual abuse. While abuse among the lesbian, gay, and bisexual, also transgender and queer or questioning plus community occurs at equal to higher rates than their heterosexual counterparts, most of it goes unrecognized or unreported, unfortunately. There are tons of barriers that affect this community, such as fear of isolation, shame of embarrassment, outing, fear of not receiving services, and not receiving proper legal protection. It is extremely unfortunate and oftentimes swept under the rug. So tonight, Nicole and Ms. Poindexter will be discussing these issues and pointing out cues and different things of that nature. So now we're going to bring in Nicole for you all to start the discussion.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So good to see you.
Always.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Me and Sparkle were just talking.
Uh-oh, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Me and Sparkle
I got you.
We were just exchanging, and I was telling her, anything for you, when you reached out to X, of course.
Thank you so much. And like you and I spoke last night, we as an organization want to make sure that we are touching the lives of victims of every background.
Mm-hmm.
Also providing information to advocates, therapists, family members that they might not otherwise be aware of. So I'm honored that you agreed to come on with us. In fact, I think it was Sparkle or Lindsay, one of the interns that reached out to ask for suggestions. And of course, your name was at the top of the list. I'm like, I know her. So,
oh my goodness. Well, that makes me feel good.
Your name is at the top of the list. So we, for those of you who don't know, Jey'nce and I met at the State of Michigan Domestic Violence Rally, where we were both speakers last October.
Yep.
And it was great information that you spoke about then. So I'm thrilled that you were able to join us. So now, I know Sparkle kind of gave a little bit of background. Is there anything else about your background that you want to share that wasn't mentioned?
So I have the honor and the privilege of not only representing the LGBTQ community, but also like being the voices for all of that victimization that goes unchecked and uncared about because our lives are undervalued or just not valued at all because we're community members. And so I have the privilege of traveling and working throughout the state of Michigan simultaneously in several different regions, rendering services, advocating, case managing, crisis calls, you name it. And so, I mean, and recently, in the past couple of years, I've also been doing a lot of political consulting and political advising. I'm really into policy and really dissecting it and what it means to organize, mobilize, and legislate, like John Lewis said.
And I've seen quite a few pictures of you with our governor.
Oh yeah, that's
amazing.
That's my girl. I love her. I absolutely love her. I always tell this little story that I had the privilege of coming to know her and connecting with her well before she got in office. And when I met her, I'm really religious and I'm deep within my faith. And so I asked the Lord, I said, well, Lord, is she okay? Do you give me that okay? And so she was well with my spirit. I continued to pray for her. We continued to talk and connect. And I knew that I was going to vote for her. But then also I believed in her leadership and her vision. And then her bringing Garland on, like this is the first Black lieutenant governor in the history of the state of Michigan. One in 2020 or 2000 anything, that shouldn't be such a, oh my goodness, but it is. And so that goes to speak to, those historical barriers such as systemic racism, such as discrimination, such as profiling, all of those things that we kind of like to sweep up under the rug. A lot of this administration under her leadership are attacking the disparities, the racial disparities, a lot of things that our prior elected officials wouldn't ever associate or pick up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's awesome because that's what we need in leadership and in office. And we may have to get you to bend her ear for the address confidentiality program. We only have till December.
I do have purple nails. Yes.
I don't. My nails are a hot mess, but I'm getting them done Saturday.
Look, I totally understand. You're good. Hi, Tanisha.
And people are welcome to ask questions. Lindsay is gonna monitor comments and questions, and they'll kind of pop up as we go. So people have questions along the way. If it's something that I missed, you guys feel free to go ahead and ask away. So I'm gonna start with, does domestic violence present itself differently in the LGBTQ community? And if so, how?
I would say no. Because let's be clear, domestic violence is domestic violence. How it is translated and depicted according to what, say, police reports or even statistics, connecting with the community, the LGBTQ community, there's always a real lapse of transparency and just overall value. Case in point, maybe 2 years back, me and one of my coworkers, we were, rendering services in the community. We get a phone call, and it's a local community, in Metro Detroit, and so the the survivor that called and reached out for the help was literally pummeled by their partner. He was pummeled by his partner, and the police did not want to do the domestic violence paperwork, and nor did they honor the relationship. So they wrote it up as a public disturbance. And I mean, this survivor, like, his eye, was like purple and blue. I mean, you could see that, this was beyond your normal misunderstanding, if you will. And so that really, it really showed a lot to me, because these are trained professionals that take an oath to protect and serve. And when you have someone in that level of position that also gets to operate out of that level of bias, to where you won't even acknowledge the situation for what it is, because you don't want to do the paperwork, because you see no point in it. You just, two guys had a misunderstanding, and yeah, that's just what it is. And so it was really interesting to see that, but also it was a constant reminder of just what the community goes through and what we experience, just even going through the judicial and reporting victimization process of the system.
Yeah, I can only imagine, even as a straight woman and dealing with the police and all the difficulties that I experienced, I can't even imagine, what other people go through.
Yeah. And that even heightens the trouble, and the sensitivity even heightens for transgender women, for particularly for trans women of color. You see this, this level of harm and murder that is now being sustained at a genocide. It's no longer an epidemic. It's been an epidemic. It's now at a sustained genocide level. And I mean, just on my Facebook about an hour ago, I shared a story of a Black trans woman who was just killed in Georgia. She was a interior decorator, and just murdered, found shot. So this continues to happen. And what the article said is that these numbers they were this high back in 2017. And at this point, we've now seen the number progressively, past those marks to where we were clutching our pearls. And so when I think about just the level of violence that comes to the community, I always have to lift up the fact, that it's higher statistically for trans women.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's really important information. I know Tanisha kind of is right on the same thought place where I am. But the next question was in terms of barriers for victims. Are there problems with shelters? Accepting? What other barriers are faced? The police, I know you just talked about that.
Yeah.
It is a barrier.
It is. And so that's definitely a barrier, and it keeps the community members even when they experience the victimization and the harm, it keeps them from reporting these things. So that's why I made the statement earlier that the statistics are off, because if you have no way of creating a real check and balance to statistics, to reporting, then how do you know that what you're presenting is fully factual? I know from rendering services that it's not. You literally have to, a pep talk and coddle your clients and survivors because they have lost hope in the system. And an advocate or a person that is there to aid and support, they can really get frustrated because they're dealing through mistrust that is so leveled from entities just not acknowledging what people go through. And then you come along and you have a person that really is trying to help, and they have to do a couple different jobs in helping because I have to coddle and prep a little. I have to encourage. I have to make sure, to tell them to kind of break it down to them, especially if you're dealing in communities of color and Black communities. We like to know the facts. Don't give me all the hoopla and all that. Break it down to me. What are we facing? What are we talking about here? What's the real issues? And so it makes our job and the process a little more difficult. Tanisha asked a question as far as the safe spaces. That continues to pose as an issue for community members. I cannot find a shelter that will openly take a LGBTQ community member. I don't care what they experience. I don't care what they're going through. And then if you just say trans woman, oh, well, we'll take this person in, but they have to come in and they have to dress according to what is on their government issued ID.
Wow.
Or
is that pretty much every shelter in our state?
Oh yeah. So the Trump administration made sure that with the amending of the policies through the HUD, so they basically said at a federal level, you can discriminate, you can do whatever you want to do if you're receiving federal money. Whereas it was protections there with the Obama administration and just certain understandings and certain things being built on that the Trump administration totally wiped out and took away. So that continues to be an issue. And even when I had clients and survivors from Detroit, from the Metro Detroit area, so I partnered with Mel Trotter about maybe 3 years ago now to open the all according to what I picked up, it's the all trans shelter. So it's trans men, trans women, and I partner with Mel Trotter, and we've been successfully going and operating for a couple years now. But the sad thing is, when I go through issues, when I have a client from here, I literally have to Uber my client to Grand Rapids if they need a safe space. If I need to help them focus and they're going through the judicial system. And I mean, that just speaks to the level of lack of resources.
Jey'nce, what is the name of that shelter in Grand Rapids?
It's the Mel Trotter Shelter. Mel Trotter has been around it's a ministry, Mel Trotter Ministries. It's been around for maybe 100, anywhere from 112 to 115 years now. And it was a collaboration that came about in me seeking shelter and resources for a community member. And I was partnering with a friend, Larry, over at the Grand Rapids Pride Center. And so we were just working, trying to make sure that we found this woman resources. I called over. We successfully got her in the intake process. The director called back and she said, you were so adamant and so clear about what you needed for her and how we could assist. She said, I really want to take a follow-up meeting with you. I go there, we go and meet. I had an intern with me by the name of D Church. I love D Church. And Larry from the Grand Rapids Pride Center. We go to the meeting and we meet with one of the directors, Adrian Goodstall. And just so happened the CEO was there that day as well. And we're talking about how good the intake process and just in this meeting. And I find out that they lost funding for a programming. But they were literally building a certain area, to the ministry for this program. The funding was snatched. They had the space. I had the community members in that meeting right then and there. Came the birth child of the all trans shelter, and we are still open and operating, and I could not be happier.
That's amazing. And that's a perfect example of advocacy in action.
Yeah. Wait, we should be saving all victims. Okay, yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Jey'nce, one thing that we just recently uncovered, you had brought up the state of Michigan, the police officers and documentation. We uncovered just a few months ago that I knew something was off looking at the MSP data. It was showing by 50% in cases of domestic violence from 17 to 18. And then also in 2019. So I called the state police and asked them, clearly domestic violence hasn't been reduced by 50% in our state. What is going on with statistics? And I was told by the person that's in charge of that department that they had decided that domestic violence was being over-reported. And they have changed the Michigan State Police forms and at every department. So when they're going in and documenting, there's a box that has to be checked by the officer for it to be counted as a domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
And we uncovered counties that were showing like they went from like 3,000 to 30.
Yeah.
And, like either the officers weren't trained. Let's discuss this with them.
No, you know what it is. It's a blatant lie. It's a blatant misrepresentation because you have officers out there who operate out of bias. There's no way you're going to tell me in the middle of a pandemic, national research and statistics shows that domestic violence is up almost, the last time I looked, it was 60%. Mm-hmm. So you go from hearing those numbers, and this was back a couple months ago when the pandemic first rolled out. So to know the stories that we see on the media, on the news, even just recently where the guy killed the girlfriend and then killed himself just last night. So there's no way that it's only a couple incidents.
They showed a reduction from 84,000 to 48 in 1 year.
I mean, as if that's acceptable. Like, let's be clear. We live in a state, and I shared this with you last year, and I was so appalled. I was so happy and thankful to meet you and Melissa and Tanisha and all of you because we started talking and researching. And I mean, this was the first domestic violence rally ever in Michigan. And I'm looking like, wow, I didn't know that. So then when we looking and we're comparing and going back and forth, and I'm like, wait, there's more concern for a bird here in the state of Michigan. Like there's more protections for livestock than there is for human life. Mm-hmm. And I mean, someone can have 10, 12, 15 domestic violence offenses, and it's never a problem. That is so warped to me, but I can go outside, and if I mistakenly if I mistakenly hit a crane or a bird or something, it's an automatic felony from the federal level.
We have a lot of work to do, and I know Melissa's saying, "What are we doing about it?" Yeah, great question, Melissa. We have to get this data fixed because, I mean, as we know, there's still going to be bias and there's still going to be documentation that doesn't get done. But by giving the officers that power, we actually reduce our funding state because we're showing half the number of violence victims. So it's money.
Yeah, so it looks like you don't need the resources because the problem is depleting.
Yeah. So that's, we definitely don't, we're not going to ignore it. We're not going to let it go. It's definitely on the list of things that we have to tackle. Do you think that there's any difference in the frequency, whether a higher rate or lower rate of intimate partner violence, the LGBTQ community versus the straight community?
No, I think if you realistically look, you'll find that it rears its head and its ugly face in the same way, from the physical, the emotional, the financial, the restricting from the family, the isolating, the threats, the stalking. The fighting, waiting outside the clubs or, following, pulling up, what is that, with the iPhones, pulling up your location. And it has really, it's scary. It is scary, and it happens in the exact same way. And what people need to realize and really just acknowledge is that in that, that's where all of us are just humans, in the sense of it happens to you, it happens to me, but why does our society have a problem with acknowledging what we all know?
That is, well, I know you're just putting that out there, and we both know why.
Yeah.
We both know why.
I was amazed as a kid to find out that was a thing, like back in the day, like what is that president, Nixon, he's filmed just saying it so coy and so candidly, like, oh yeah, and I stopped beating my wife. And I was like, I remember asking, like, an older person, like, why, was that like a joke or a skit or like a rewrite? And they were like, well, no, like back in the day, it was a thing to, you get off work and you come home and you beat your wife.
And I think it was maybe 3 years ago, there was a big scandal about the coach of the Detroit Tigers making a very similar statement.
I do.
Do you remember that? Yeah. When they were winning some games or something, and he said, literally 3 years ago, and he made some joke, I'm not beating my wife anymore, or something like that. Yeah.
It was mortifying because you hear a lot of stories and horror stories, or you experience them, you know what I'm saying? God forbid, but I mean, it just is what it is. And so it was like, that was really, really something for me. Like, oh, it was just that loose.
Yeah, it's really sad, and unfortunately, I think there still are a lot of people in our society that feel that way still. Unfortunately, which is why we are continuing to struggle and have to fight so hard to get the protections and resources that we as victims need.
Yeah. That's why we gotta vote.
Yeah.
So we gotta vote. We've gotta know. Like, for one thing, we gotta get politics to to again work for the people. I think somewhere down the line in the last years, it shifted. Like, we're working for the politicians. Like, you have to appeal to them, and you have to get a meeting from them, and you like all of this crazy stuff when it's supposed to be the other way around. These are your constituents that stay in your districts, that pay taxes, that are entitled to representation because you represent the district, yet you don't raise the issues. There's no way that this is as prevalent as it is in our society, and we don't have elected officials come out saying, hey, this is wrong, because you're coming to find that a lot of them do it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I know some of the things that we faced, and you may face similar things when you're doing the legislation and proposing the different bills, is that our state in particular is so divided by party that everything gets frozen right here, and nothing moves forward.
It's so sad too, because you see all of these commercials, and I mean, I'll tell you, Democrat and Republican, I mean, you just see bullshit. Excuse me.
My viewers are used to it. It's okay.
Like, you literally just can see it, and it's so tiring. And I now understand what people say, just about disliking politics. But what I always encourage people, and what I say is to, we all are political. We all have to be involved. If you cast a vote, you're political. What we don't like is the people's actions. The elected officials have dirtied the politics. You know what I'm saying? So you hear these commercials and all, oh, it's so important to work together, and we can do this bipartisan. But when you see just the vitriol and the confusion, like it doesn't look like a work together spirit. You know what I'm saying? And so it really bugs me, because it's just a constant, like, prolonging. And we really need people on the side of both aisles that really understand the beauty of diversity, of working together, of hearing your voice. And even if I don't agree you, to still respect you. And even if we somehow or another, we don't see completely eye to eye on one in one perspective, that doesn't mean that I have to tear you apart as a person, as a whole. Mm-hmm. And it's sad. It's sad.
It is very sad. Hopefully people will research. We talked about this a little bit, last week, and do the research on voting and deciding who's going to be in office, and who's going to step up and speak up on our behalf.
Important. I mean, it is so important. I mean, even tonight, like, I got my TV set to record the debate, and maybe I may not watch all of it from start to finish, but I find the beauty in being informed for myself. Knowing these people, for looking up histories on how you vote and what your policies are. Those votes and that history and stuff, and following these elected officials, that really matters, because Absolutely. I can tell you one thing, but there is a history of how I vote, which speaks for itself. And you don't have to have words with that. You can simply pull it up and look, and I can see exactly how you feel.
Yeah. And it's, as you're describing that, I'm like, oh, it sounds just like a bad relationship. They say one thing, but they do, right? And it's pay attention to the actions.
Yeah. I mean, look at this president, this person. Like, you have all of these lives in your hand. You have all of this responsibility. You have ascended to the highest office in the land, yet you have no respect for human decency and human life. You have tested positive. Your wife, I mean, totally the whole circle around you, and you come out as a show. Because everything is production and showcase. You come out from the hospital and take your mask off and stand there and heroic manufactured moment. And I'm just looking like, wow, how irresponsible. You know, even when you've found out deathly information, that you would be so lucid to still just encourage people not to care. No.
Absolutely. It's terrifying.
Mm.
Tanisha, yes, Tanisha said we're speaking to so many barriers that we face to do this work. Absolutely. We have a lot of barriers to face, but you know, we're strong. All of us are. We just have to keep pushing, keep pushing. I know it's exhausting, but it's what we have to do.
Yeah. And doing what we're doing now. This is coalition building. This is pulling minds together. You're in the region. I'm in Southfield. Tanisha, Melissa is there, and all of us working and throwing out these nets and putting out this goodness and everything that we're doing in our communities, and then pulling together and saying, hey, what's working for you and what's not? Are you okay? You know, even this, pulling an opportunity, there's not many people who care about my population of people that are willing to make space intentionally for us to have this level of conversation and exchange so freely and respectfully. So even this is to me an opportunity to touch a person's heart or spirit who may not know that this is going on, you know, who may not know that LGBTQ community members in 2020 can be kicked out of housing or denied healthcare, access to healthcare, just because they're a community member. It is people that are paying taxes that don't know that we live in a state that literally will deny me health care because they'll say, well, the doctor didn't approve of you being trans, so he doesn't have to help you.
And you shed some light on the shelter situation for me, because I, you know, thought 2020 we're beyond, you know, someone having to dress and function as what's on their birth certificate, not who they are. So, you know, silly me for thinking we were past that.
I mean, it's actually the complete opposite. Even when you think about, so earlier this year in the summer, the Supreme Court agreed that we shouldn't be discriminated against in the workplace. And, you know, everybody was hurrah, hurrah. Okay, cool. You know, me understanding policy and what that means is, okay, this is fine. Clearly. So you know, you've given us what can be a foundation to build on. You said we can't be discriminated in the workplace, but I can still go home and be evicted. I can still be fired. You know what I'm saying? Because it's at will. So even though we got a building stone, it still left so many things open: public accommodation, healthcare, and at the very same time, the Trump administration was literally in court arguing that I shouldn't have comprehensive health care, that a doctor should not see me because I'm trans. And so when you think about just where our world is and all these pieces that are moving, yeah, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa's saying there will be more and more warriors in this area by watching by example. Absolutely. And, you know, I think these conversations are so important. And, you know, we talked last night about just being real and authentic. And you said, ask me anything you want, that you're going to be honest and authentic, and you want to educate people. And I appreciate that. And that's how I always start out my presentations with kids. Like, ask me what you want. If it's something that I don't want to share, I'll just tell you. I'm not comfortable sharing that. But otherwise, you know, this is why I work here, is to share this information to people who don't have opportunity to hear from someone like you, who don't have this knowledge base. So it's so important.
And that's why I'm willing to support the work that you do, the work that Tanisha does, the work that Melissa do, whether we share online, lift it up, comment on it. Since I've known you girls, it's been an even exchange, that supportive love, that kind of sisterhood. And that's really important because if you are to make it, I am too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's no way that I can just go full steam ahead and I'm only LGBTQ. Like that doesn't make sense to me. And I'm literally seeing all of these other people be harmed and be murdered and be subjected to a secondary quality of life. So if I can connect to my harm, to my murder, to my community's victimization, I also have to be able to not only connect to yours, but stand in that fight with you and also like, hey, no, this is happening to people, period.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. One of the other questions, just to kind of go back to my list, I'll be on here, we'll be talking for like 3 hours. I already know that's just me. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen with custody issues? I know a friend in Kansas City who had it was her wife's biological children, and when they split, the wife didn't allow her to see the children any longer. Do you see issues like that happen pretty frequently?
Yes, we do. So my coworker, Geneva Mays, at Equality Michigan, she handles a lot of the calls that we get as far as the parental kind of judicial court system, family court stuff. And so it has been a really huge spike. Coming with the marriages also comes with the disconnections, the divorce, the parting of ways. And so it is a lot of issues in there. We had one situation where there was a fight between a partner who was not the biological parent, but the parent was not as responsible as the extended parent or the secondary parent. And so it was painful to kind of go through that, but I kind of watched my coworker navigate through that. And we are seeing a lot of those kind of calls like, well, where do we go now?
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely an issue.
I can only imagine. And we're actually on the 15th, which is I think next Thursday, we are having Tracy Vanderberg, who is running for Washtenaw County Family Court Judge.
Okay.
And Jennifer Payne, who is a family court divorce attorney, on for Alive.
Good.
So why we're talking about this, because that's something I can definitely ask, about in terms of someone who's running for office in Washtenaw County, like what their take is on these cases.
Where do you stand? Like what's your feeling? Look, long gone are the days of trying to be, collect and cool and collected and sweet and demure. No, it is life or death out here, and we have to be able to just straight up, hey, what is this? What do you feel about that? Where do you stand on this? Because if not, we're gonna be stuck in this cycle of like, why do we continue to feel hopeless? Why don't we have leaders? Why don't we have people that are willing to go against the grain and that are willing to just do what's right no matter what? And so I don't know. It's crazy, but I believe it's a shifting that's going on now. You got all these minds brainstorming and working, and you got the resistance, and you got the spirit of the people that are really awake right now and that really want to see change. And part of that is dismantling a lot of these entities and you know, these places and these structures that we know are doing more harm than help.
Absolutely. And I know, you know, a lot of people were asking me, you know, what do we have to do for change? Do we need to storm the Capitol like they did about the mask? Because they got changed right away. You
Right.
know, what they're doing in Mexico and put on our bandanas and set our smoke bombs for women's rights? Like,
as soon as we do that, we're crazy and we're cuckoo.
Right.
But you always see the playing field unleveled.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you just look at what they're doing to the governor. Like, here is, you have elected officials and groups that are formed, and you're upset because she's trying to preserve life.
Mhm.
Like, she's interrupting your constitutional rights and the flow thereof by trying to preserve your life. I don't understand it. I never will understand it. Particularly for Black people, it's like, please, why would I believe anything that this administration is saying? And you have no association or acknowledgement for the lives that are lost. And when you were asked about 2 weeks ago on a widely shared interview, you said it is what it is. It is what it is. That's something that you say, like, about a shirt, you know, that got tore, or, you know, maybe you got some bleach on your Black sweater. Oh, it is what it is. I'll grab a tuber. Not about human life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, when people have asked me that question, Jey'nce, I kind of had the same response. Well, if we did that, we'd be arrested.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
The end. Like,
and we'd be crazy, and what the hell is going on? But you literally have people throwing tissy fits and adult tantrums just over, like, put on a mask when you go into a store. Nobody's asking you to live in it, but put it on. Just be a little bit more responsible and just a little more caring for someone else. And that has caused national rift.
Absolutely. And Lindsay just let me know her internet went out for some reason, so she can't share the comments right now. She's trying to get it, but we're good.
Yeah.
But in terms of the comments.
Okay.
She's going to try to get it back up. So sorry, guys, if you're watching and trying to ask a question, I'll try to do my best to cover everything that you guys might be thinking. Can you share with us any resources either at the state level or the national level that you would think would be important for the LGBTQ community members or advocates, therapists to know about that you would want to share?
Of course. So I'm working very closely with the Biden campaign, doing a lot. The Biden-Harris campaign is very intentional about connecting with the community and grassroots. And so I've uplifted a lot of these issues. And I also know a lot of elected officials throughout the country that I've consulted or advised. And I also raise these issues to them. So I'm always constantly lifting them up, but particularly for the LGBTQ community, if you are experiencing this, you know, there is someone who cares. And I think of Ruth Ellis. I think of Trans Sisters of Color Project. I think of Fair and Equal Michigan. I think of Fair Michigan. These are places that I know are fighting, you know, and that are in the trenches. And it's just extremely important that we multitask. And so I render services, but I'm also heavy in my political work because I know the importance of meeting needs, but also establishing precedents and introducing legislation so that we can restructure these policies to really impact for a better quality of life for us all.
Thank you for continuing to do that, because I know how exhausting that work is.
It is. Look.
At a personal level, and
Yeah, you're always moving. You're always on.
Exhausting, and there were several times that I had to like bite my tongue so hard that I'm pretty sure it was bleeding in meetings. When people would, say things like, "Oh, nope, NRI, we can't do that. NRI will block that. Can't do that. So and so will block that." I'm like, who cares? Like, they matter more than us. Like,
I find it best to just be myself. I know that I've got the favor of God, in the opportunities, the spaces that I occupy, the people that I'm connected with. And so that's what keeps me in line, is that accountability, is that, when I come into a room, I'm not just coming into a room. I'm bringing all of those lived experiences that I know, that I understand, that I've helped people navigate through and help restore people and empower people back to whole through. I know these things, and they're here in my heart. And so when I occupy these spaces and I have these chances to talk with a Beto O'Rourke or a Cory Booker or, Joe Biden or Senator Kamala Harris, that I uplift these things because people just don't know. They just don't know.
Yeah. And you're right. There's a difference between you don't know what you don't know and choosing to be ignorant of that information. Right? Like there's a difference. And so by people reaching out and asking questions and being open to hearing you, I mean, it's so important, because there are other people that we know in powerful positions who, have the earplugs in, and they don't want to hear, they don't want to know.
Yeah. That's a good thing about where we are. I feel like our state leaders, we really have a chance to do a lot with them. And of course, they're going to be stifled just by politics and the nastiness thereof. But we really have a lot of great people in office where we can bring those issues and highlight and center those voices that were historically, dismissed or not acknowledged. And that's why I'm always in support of the people that I know are doing things, not that, I see something every now and again. If you ever see me connected to an elected official or someone, it's because we're working together. It's because I know the character and the heart of this person, and it's coming from a good place.
Good to know. So, and you post, where would people go to look in terms of recommendations for who to vote for different
in terms of recommendations, I would say you can look up Planned Parenthood. Cassie, she is the first Black organizer over there with them, and she is doing phenomenal work in the sense of voter education and being involved in the electoral process. And when I say she is like involved, like how we are, it's not she's just somewhere with the banner every now and again. Like, this girl is setting up in gustly winds and getting rained on and getting people registered to vote and making sure to understand the candidates that they have endorsed and why. And so I would always look to her as a resource, and Planned Parenthood. I know that also, particularly for LGBTQ community members, Equality Michigan is about to put out a list of candidates that they endorse and support, and candidates that have been very clear about where they stand as far as equality and the Elliott Larson Act amending, and then Fair and Equal Michigan. So I'm a co-chair of Fair and Equal Michigan, and we are still trying desperately to get the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act amended to cover sexual orientation and gender identity. And so we were were the first campaign to start collecting signatures online and stuff. And so I would urge you all, it really is not about a LGBT agenda or anything like that. But when you hear of all of these hate crimes and different things that happen around the country, particularly the Ahmaud Arbery killing, that was a hate crime. And the reason that it was covered up for almost 5 to 6 months, the reason that we did not know the truth of that case is because it was filed, it wasn't filed properly. And so had it been labeled as what it was, because let's be clear, the FBI is very clear about what they, consider a hate crime. So it may be different from what me or someone thinks, but they were followed because they fit the description of a Black robber. So not a robber with a red car or red coat, a Black robber. So you chase them. The chase was motivated by race, and you killed him. You hunted him down and you killed him. So that was murder. That was hate. That was based on his skin color. So that's very clear. Had that been prosecuted as such, we would have known. It would have been a matter of public record. 5, almost 6 months later, we find out, and then we have to go backtrack. Well, where was the downfall? Well, who lied? Well, where was the assistant attorney? Well, who pressed the charges? Well, who didn't? So we literally went backwards because things were not done in proper order.
And as we both know, that happens all the time, related to race and with violence, domestic violence, all the time. Like just the example we talked about earlier with the state police not filing, a box. Well, I mean, it's horrible. And I'm glad someone's finally, it took 6 months. And I'm not even sure, I'm glad you brought this. Who uncovered that?
The video was leaked.
It always comes down to a video. No one believes anything until they have to see it themselves.
Well, even afterwards, you had people saying, well, he shouldn't have been running over there. Huh? Like, wait. So let's just say, for what argument purposes, that he was running in the wrong part of town. But this is a person who ran every day. I don't think that they mistake their path. And so by them running in the wrong side of town, they deserve to be killed. Again, where is the value on just the human life first? And that's the scary part, because Michigan is just like Georgia in the sense of being at will and the antiquated laws and the lack of understanding, the preciousness of human life. Absolutely.
Can you think anything else that I haven't asked you, or that you think it's important that we touch on, related to LGBTQ and domestic violence, intimate partner violence? I know the homicide rate is very similar as with any other intimate partner homicide rate. We can see some more comments. Thank you. Here we go. How can we hold them accountable? People's lives are at stake.
When you hear about those stories, the same way we're uplifting this now, or someone shares something, attach it, take it in, make it human, share the story, exchange, talk to people about it, put it in the surface, because what we see is that social media can be a very useful tool at seeking justice and getting resolved, accountability, and all of these things. And so that's what we have to do. We have to throw it back in people's face and literally challenge them. And how do you recognize and how do you get this victimization and you get this murder and you get this harm and you get this wrongdoing, but you don't get mine. And how do you want all this liberation and all of this change and all of this stuff, but you don't want it for me?
Yeah, that's a very deep question, and it's sad that we talked about earlier. It's 2020, and we're still, dealing with this on a daily basis. Okay, she's saying I'm accountable. And you brought up a good point. If not for social media, my case would never have gone to prosecution.
See?
If not for social media that then exposed to the Free Press, reporter who took my case, and then it blew up in a viral way, and enough pressure was put on the Attorney General's office, I would not be here right now.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to you, I would be hiding. I'd be in another state with a different name, being able to talk about this stuff publicly. So I 100%, it's sad that it has to take that to actually get help, but it is true. Okay, Nicole is asking, let's see, can you read that too?
Oh yeah, LGBTQ veterans soldiers have a hard time getting protection. They struggle to get homosexuality off discharge paperwork. Trans veterans deal with risk of loss of career due to Trump, and seeking help from them as a community is not spoken of in the military from my experience. And I thank you for sharing that, Nicole, and you are absolutely right. And it takes me back to a client that I had about a year and a half ago in Kent County. She was a trans woman, and she was a veteran. She had a Purple Heart. I mean, decorated, honorable. And she actually went to go and get hormonal therapy from a doctor at the VA. And they refused to cover her. They refused to see her and help her, and literally told her, the doctor literally told her that he didn't think that it was necessary for him to prescribe that medication, and that it didn't align with what he thought, his client should do. And so I fought with her, and we fought and pushed back, and went all up with the Spectrum healthcare system up there, and just everything. We did finally get her a peaceful and appropriate resolve. And so much so, she got her full benefits, and then they also extended a position of advocacy for her to help just with VA transgender people navigate through the system. So that was definitely a win-win.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I know it took you guys a ton of work, it sounds like, but thank you for not giving up.
Yeah.
And, continuing the fight to make, and now she can help other people.
Yes, that was the most gratifying part, because when she came to me, she didn't come how some people could say, when she came to me, she was so broken. She was not broken. She had fought, and she had mailed letters, and she had given a lot of intentional energy. She was being railroaded by the system that she was faithful to. That's what it was. That was the truth. And they were operating out of discriminatory bias because she was a trans woman. That was it. So I let her know that, no, you're fine. They suck.
True statement. So anything else? I know, gosh, we've already been out here for an hour. That's so crazy.
Oh, really?
I feel like it's been like 15 minutes.
I know.
Is there anything else you can think of that's information that is really important that you want to share with our viewers? We've got people from across the nation that will be tuning in or watching later. Anything you really, want to share?
Well, me personally, to help, to aid, to really speak to the violence and the victimization to the LGBTQ community members. Please look up Fair and Equal Michigan, sign the petition, donate. We are still, even throughout the COVID pandemic, I'm a proud co-chair. We are still organizing. We are still convening. We're still collecting signatures. We still need donations to fight these entities that are pushing hate, and what I want to tell people is that all of our liberation is connected. If I make it, you make it. And so understanding that, wherever you can lend yourself, if you can look up the Trans Sisters of Color Project. Again, I'm the vice president. This is the agency where I know where our resources are going. I know we are innovative. Just yesterday, we actually received the Spirit of Detroit Award.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. We received that award, and we're proud because so many times our work is dismissed because there's very little value on our life. So clearly, any work or navigating that we do also can get dismissed. And so to it's one thing for you to say who you are and what you do, but to have an entity such as the Detroit City Council, Councilwoman Lopez was very instrumental in getting that recognized, getting that recognition stamped. Much love to T.A. Rogers with Councilwoman Lopez team, and I'm just continuing to be grateful. Anything, I'm on Facebook. I don't really do a lot of inboxing interaction. I really do on my page, but I do that to be transparent and accountable to the community because people trust me, and they trust me and they associate me with my work and with my name. And I want to make sure that that's always to a level of integrity to which it speaks for itself. So even what you opened up with earlier, telling me that, I receive it and I appreciate it because it is intentional. It's making it home to make sure to have conversations like this. I don't know who will watch or who picked this up and listen, and it may touch their heart or their spirit. And vice versa. I take your stories and those experiences and I shared them with people, who didn't know, and even people in my family, who have been victims of domestic violence, when they heard that I was working on the rally with you all, they were like, oh my goodness, that's so nice. And so I just thank you for this moment. Continue to support each other. Whatever you post, I see it, love it, share it. Same with Melissa, Tanisha, because that building of sisterhood, that coalition, it feels good and it's what we need. It's what we're lacking. And so that's why it feels good, because that's the way it's supposed to be. We were not put on this earth to kind of navigate by ourselves. We were here to coalition build and to connect, and for me to help you and you to help me and thrive off each other. And so that's why it works. That's why it feels good. I thank you so much for sharing space and allowing space for me to come and address your listeners and your audience. And I will continue to support you in whatever way I can.
Thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing. And I so appreciate just being able to have these open and honest conversations that need to be had.
For sure.
So, I mean, you're absolutely amazing. Your spirit is amazing. Your energy is amazing. So thank you so much. I mean, I learned so much. This is a great learning experience for they're master's level intern students at Wayne State University. So they're going to be working with lots of different populations. So this, information is invaluable to them too. Renee saying, thank you for sharing your truth.
Thank you, Renee. I really appreciate it. And anything following up, like, hey, I'm not that formal, you know, and I'm not one of those people like, oh yes, get to my people and, you know, all of that. No, if it's something going on and you got a question or you just need to know, by all means, reach out. If it's something relating to the community, please connect the dots or whatever that is, and definitely use as a resource moving forward for conversations, whatever. And thank you so much, Nicole. I see you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know you got to get, I don't even know what time the debate starts, but.
It starts at 9.
9, okay. You know, sometimes when I get watching it, I just can't even believe what I'm watching. So
I'm looking forward to this one. Let's be clear. Last week or week before last, you know, it was a shit show. I was looking forward to Biden doing more, but also, I mean, he literally had to babysit through. And so it was what it was considering. But I think tonight we'll get to more of a grit because Kamala and Pence are both a little more leveled. And not to say that Joe isn't, but he, you know, he did take the bait a little bit more often than I would have liked personally. So I'm looking forward to tonight because Kamala is strong and Pence has you know, I don't like his policies, but he has a certain character and presence about himself as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I know we will be working together in the future without a doubt.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking forward to very much.
Yeah.
Mwah, thank you.
Mwah. See you
All right,
later.
hopefully I'll see you in real life soon.
Yes, ma'am. I promise. I promise.
All right, bye. Thank you. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have any feedback, please feel free to continue to put it in the comments and we will answer or follow up in the comments if there's something that we didn't get to.